Welcome to Podcast Learn English Perfectly.
Welcome to our podcast on social media addiction. I'm Alex, and with me today is our expert guest, Jemmy.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to discuss this important topic.
Let's start by defining what social media addiction is. Can you give us a brief history of social media and its rise in popularity?
Absolutely. Social media started with platforms like Friendster and MySpace. Social media addiction is when individuals feel compelled to spend excessive amounts of time on social media platforms, often to the detriment of their personal and professional lives. It's characterized by an inability to control usage despite knowing it's causing negative consequences.
Interesting. What makes social media so addictive?
Social media platforms are designed with features like notifications, likes, and endless scrolling to keep users engaged. These features tap into our brain's reward system, releasing dopamine, which creates a feeling of pleasure and encourages users to keep coming back.
What are some signs that someone might be struggling with social media addiction?
Common signs include spending more time online than intended, feeling anxious or restless when not on social media, and neglecting responsibilities or relationships in favor of social media use.
How does this addiction impact daily life?
It can lead to problems like decreased productivity, strained relationships, and mental health issues such as anxiety and depression. People may also experience sleep disturbances and a general sense of dissatisfaction with their real lives compared to their curated online personas.
Can you share any strategies for managing social media use effectively?
Sure, setting specific time limits, turning off non-essential notifications, and creating social media-free zones or times during the day can help. It's also useful to engage in other fulfilling activities and to be mindful of how social media makes you feel.
That's great advice. Are there any success stories of people overcoming social media addiction that you could share?
Yes, I've worked with individuals who've successfully reduced their social media use by gradually cutting back and replacing that time with hobbies and face-to-face interactions. One client used to spend hours online but now enjoys more meaningful in-person connections and has reported a significant improvement in overall well-being.
Fantastic. Before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or resources to recommend?
If you're struggling with social media addiction, it's important to seek support from mental health professionals. There are also numerous online resources and apps designed to help manage and reduce social media use. Reflecting on how social media affects your life and making intentional changes can make a big difference.
Thank you so much, Jessie, for sharing your insights. It's been a really enlightening conversation.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Let's dive a bit deeper into some solutions. You mentioned digital detoxes earlier. How can someone effectively implement a digital detox, and what benefits might they see? A digital detox involves taking a break from all digital devices, especially social media. To implement it effectively, set a clear duration for the detox, whether it's a day, a weekend, or even a week. During this period, engage in offline activities that you enjoy. Benefits can include reduced stress, improved focus, and a renewed appreciation for real-life interactions. It also helps reset your digital habits and allows you to assess how social media impacts your life.
That sounds like a powerful strategy. Are there specific techniques or tools people can use to help manage their social media consumption? What about building healthier habits around social media? How can someone integrate social media into their life in a more balanced way? What are some common signs that someone might be struggling with this addiction? What are some common signs that someone might be addicted to social media?
Some common signs include spending an excessive amount of time on social media, feeling anxious or stressed when unable to access social media, neglecting responsibilities or hobbies, and using social media as a primary way to cope with stress or loneliness.
What are some of the factors that contribute to social media addiction?
There are several factors, including the design of social media platforms, which use algorithms to keep users engaged, psychological factors like the need for validation and fear of missing out (FOMO), and social factors such as peer pressure and cultural norms.
How does social media addiction affect mental health and overall well-being?
It can lead to issues like anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. The constant comparison with others can make individuals feel inadequate, and the addiction can disrupt sleep patterns, reduce face-to-face interactions, and impact academic or work performance.
For those who might be struggling with social media addiction, what steps can they take to regain control?
Setting specific time limits for social media use, turning off notifications, engaging in offline activities, and seeking support from friends, family, or a professional can be helpful. Mindfulness practices and digital detoxes can also make a significant difference.
Are there ways to use social media more mindfully to prevent addiction in the first place?
Absolutely. Being aware of how much time you spend online, curating your feed to include positive and inspiring content, and setting boundaries can all help. It's also important to maintain a balance between online and offline interactions.
Let's talk about the role of social media companies in this issue. How do the design and business models of these platforms contribute to addiction?
Social media companies design their platforms to maximize user engagement. Features like infinite scrolling, notifications, likes, and shares are all designed to keep users coming back. Their business models often rely on advertising revenue, which means the more time users spend on the platform, the more money they make.
Do you think these companies have a responsibility to address the addiction their platforms can cause?
Absolutely. Just as we expect food companies to be mindful of the health impacts of their products, social media companies should consider the psychological and social impacts of their platforms. Some companies have started implementing features to help users manage their time, but there's still a long way to go.
Many of our listeners might be curious about real-life experiences with social media addiction. Can you share any stories or examples of individuals who have struggled with this?
Certainly, I've worked with clients who felt they were losing control over their lives due to their social media use. One young woman, for instance, found herself spending up to 8 hours a day online, neglecting her studies and relationships. Through therapy and by setting strict boundaries, she was able to reduce her usage significantly and regain control.
That's powerful. It shows that recovery is possible with the right support and strategies. How does social media addiction impact different demographics? Are there specific age groups or populations that are more vulnerable?
Teenagers and young adults are particularly vulnerable due to their developmental stage and social environment. They're more likely to seek peer approval and are heavily influenced by social media trends. However, adults and even older adults can also be affected, especially those who might feel isolated or use social media as a primary means of communication.
What about cultural differences? Does the impact of social media addiction vary across different cultures?
Yes, cultural factors can influence how social media is used and perceived. In some cultures, social media might be more integrated into daily life and social expectations, which can increase the risk of addiction. In others, there might be more emphasis on face-to-face interactions and offline activities.
Looking ahead, how do you see the future of social media and its impact on addiction? Are there any emerging trends or technologies that could help or hinder this issue?
We're seeing a growing awareness of digital well-being, and some tech companies are starting to prioritize features that help users manage their time better. However, the rise of new technologies like virtual reality and augmented reality could pose new challenges. It's crucial for both developers and users to remain mindful of the potential impacts.
Are there any promising tools or apps designed to help people manage their social media use more effectively?
Yes, there are several apps designed to help users track and limit their screen time, such as Moment, Forest, and Freedom. These tools can be very effective when used consistently and in conjunction with other healthy habits.
This has been an incredibly enlightening conversation. Before we go, could you share some resources where our listeners can learn more about social media addiction and find help if they need it?
Of course, websites like the Center for Humane Technology and Common Sense Media offer valuable information for those seeking professional help. The American Psychological Association has a directory of licensed psychologists. Additionally, books like Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport provide practical strategies for reducing digital dependency.
Thank you for joining us today and sharing your expertise, and thank you to our listeners for tuning in. If you found this episode helpful, Please share it with your friends and family. Don't forget to subscribe to Learn English Perfectly for more insightful discussions. Until next time, take care and be mindful of your social media use.